Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaking to the bill.
The gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. I want to echo a couple of things that have been said today. This bill represents the first step. The one thing that we discovered when we began work on this months ago was our current ethics laws and disclosure forms, frankly, are a mess. And there's only so much that you can fix given the deadlines that we have for a legislative session. The most important thing that this bill does, and if it did nothing else, this would be very significant, is to establish a permanent ethics advisory council who from this day forward will continually look at our ethics laws and our forms and figure out how to best reform them. If we had the time, we would have blown up the entire Conflict of Interest Act and started from scratch. We didn't have that time. And so we did the best that we could. We wanted to err on more disclosure. One of the things that we discovered as we looked at the first step here was staff spent an inordinate amount of time looking at what other states did. And we were surprised to learn that even in those states that have gift bans, they exclude from the definition of gift meals, entertainment, travel, and many of the things that we have captured as intangible gifts. By excluding them from the definition of gift, not only are they okay to receive and not subject to a cap, they're not disclosable. And we didn't want to go down that path. But we recognized as we tried to draw the line between what would be okay in tangible gifts and what wouldn't be, is that no matter what we said in the code, it would be subject to interpretation. And people would end up doing what they wanted to do anyway. So we prefer to err more on the side of let's call travel that is associated with your work what it is. It is travel that is associated with your work. There are certain things that we as legislators, that we as public officials are expected to do. We are expected to learn about issues facing the Commonwealth, whether it's through going to conferences in other states or going to look in other cities at what they're doing and how they're solving problems that we face. If we were a full-time legislature with all the money in the world, we could do that at state expense. We're not there. So we wanted to make sure, because currently some people report that as gifts, some people report it as travel. We wanted to give clear guidance on what that was. Anything that is not associated with your official duties, let's call it what it is. It's a gift. And let's make sure that everybody is reporting those things appropriately. To answer a couple of the questions that have come up, and again, this is a good example how every time we met, we found some little, well, what about this? Well, what about this? If you look, the code already gives a definition of value. If you look at lines 162, which is in the Lobbyist Disclosure Act, value means the actual cost or fair market value of an item or items, whichever is greater, and if the fair market value cannot be determined, the actual amount paid. Now, what the courts will do is if they find value for purposes of our disclosure forms vague, they will look at the code to figure out how else it is used, and there is a definition. Question about forbearance. If you look on page 8, line 443, at the definition of a gift for purposes of the Conflict of Interest Act for both state officials, and there's a corresponding one for legislators, gift includes in the definition forbearance. So to answer the gentleman from Fairfax's question, yes, if someone forbears something, that is a gift, whether it's included on the form or not. To answer questions about solicitation and why we limited a solicitation to tangible gifts, again, we started to go down the scenarios of what if. And if you are invited to speak at a conference in your official capacity as a legislator in another state, and you cannot afford to pay for that out of your own pocket, and the entity sponsoring the event offers to pay for your travel or to reimburse you, that's a gift. If you say to that person, well, I'd love to come and speak at your event, but I can't afford it, and then they offer to pay, have you now solicited a gift that would have violated the ban if we included that? What we are trying to do is provide some guidance on what is or is not acceptable, keeping in mind it is already illegal to take gifts that have the appearance of influencing you, or you have reason to believe could be an attempt to influence you in making decisions, either as a legislator or as a state or local government official. That is already legal. What we are trying to do is give everyone guidance on what is or is not acceptable behavior that is not already illegal. But we are also trying to recognize that we are average human beings who, if we are not careful, we will set traps that will make people wonder, do I really want to put myself out there at great sacrifice to my family to be a public official when I can unknowingly step into a situation that gets me into trouble? Again, this is a first step. Is this the end? No. Will there probably be more changes and more refining to this bill? Most definitely. Will the Ethics Council come back next year with more recommendations? Probably. But this is much better than the system we have today. And I don't think we should let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And for that, I ask that you engross the bill and pass it to its third reading.